Sega's Draconian policies, the reboot rant. Okay, I don't have an intro because that'll just be a waste of time, so let's just get into it. The first Draconian policy is this. Sonic characters aren't allowed to have relatives anymore. Even Uncle Chuck isn't allowed to be called his actual uncle, just an uncle figure. That honestly feels like a betrayal of everything that his character was supposed to be. He was called Uncle Chuck for a reason. Granted, I can understand not liking the characters having parents because they're excess baggage and all they do is nag them to be careful, while generally not contributing to the plot at all by being badass. I mean, I wasn't sure what to think of Uncle Chuck when I first saw him. I thought he was likable, but kind of too much similar to Sonic in the way he looked, and too competent to be really believable. I still just tolerate the concept of the characters having relatives. I prefer for the characters to have the sweet moments with their friends instead, like Sonic and Tails having family moments together instead of with their own families I don't care as much about. And I'd rather have I would be happier to see Sonic being really nice to Knuckles and hugging him than his father. But just because I don't like it doesn't mean I think it should be removed from the comic out of Draconian arbitrary censorship. 2. Sega characters can't have long-lasting romantic relationships. This is a mandate I find sort of disgusting. There were so many missed opportunities with the comic over characters dating other characters and never getting to. People whine and bitch about Sonic dating, but he only got the chance to have relationships with 2 girls. That was the problem. They could have had him try out way more girls if they cared about showing him with someone other than Sally instead of forcing an official couple that's horribly incompatible down our throats. I mean, when I think of cool, I think of gets lots of babes, so you should think that Sonic would be that. Especially since it's the only continuity that has had dating. I would have been fine if the mandate was instead that Sonic and Sally can't date each other, but he's still free to date other people. But instead, no dating period? What is this, a Care Bears comic? Dora the Explorer? Bullshit. Even kids series have shipping in them. Dating is not something that's too much for the kiddies to handle. Bunny and Antoine are allowed. Why would Sega even care about this? They should really have just left it alone. What do they have against characters having sweet, heartwarming moments with each other? Even in the actual RG Sonic comic, the romance was very toned down to the point where it's stupid to even say it had romance, let alone romance drama. Cause, case in point, Antoine and Bunny only kissed a small handful of times, and they were the biggest romance of all. Characters were more likely to hug than kiss, so I don't see how it was going overboard for the kiddies. They always handled it fine. Almost every long-running franchise worth their salt has had shipping. That's just how it is. Like Jimmy Neutron, iCarly, stuff like that. Danny Phantom. Having 2 characters hook up is a way to spice things up with a new plot thing and make it a little more refreshing. This just makes the comic prone to stagnating by everything staying the same. And then the Shattered World Crisis happened. From what I heard, supposedly the non-romance mandate was what caused Sally to break up with Sonic. Sources for that? I just saw it on amino apps. That mandate's very inconsistent then, since it didn't come down on Sonic dating Fiona and then dating Sally again. Though both those relationships ended, and kinda naturally, they were still allowed to happen. 3. Emerald, Eggman Nega, Mephiles, and Black Doom cannot be used. Even though Emerald was clearly referenced in the crossover by name. Apparently the dumb story-stifling mandate also goes for the games. That at least I can get behind, at least for the latter half of them. For the former half, those characters should really be brought back and shown in more plots. It'd be way more interesting seeing what Eggman Nega's up to with his dimension traveling than seeing another original but stupid and generic game villain. They should clean up their old toys before they play with their new ones. Also, it's kind of funny because they got away with showing Mephiles in Scourge Lockdown. 4. There's been a mandate that Sonic can't get overly emotional, misphrased often as Sonic can't cry. It's to the point where when Sonic was upset about losing his kids, Manic and Sonia, the original art had him somehow look even more emotional. This is stupid. If anything, him being upset makes him more sympathetic and developed and believable, instead of just a soulless mascot spouting one-liners. Again, it's a Gary Stu mandate. Even Fleetway Sonic got emotional sometimes. 5. Use of the word Mobius is another one that Sega seems to flip back and forth on. They really shouldn't do that and should just fuck off with that. It's better than calling it Sonic's World, or Earth when it's clearly not our planet. Apparently in the reboot, it's not allowed to be called Earth either. What the fuck are they supposed to call it then? Sonic's World is such a stupid meta name. And I guarantee you they never explicitly tell you that they named the planet after him on purpose, which makes it completely unjustified in universe. 6. Amy can only crush on Sonic. No one else. Again, are you serious? So much for originality. Having a crush on a particular person is not an unchangeable innate personality trait that would be unforgivable to change. Like, it would be interesting to see, like, Tails and Amy dating, for example, but that's not gonna happen. 7. Sonic and Amy aren't allowed to date. The justification is that this would make them lose their unique dynamic. Translation, it drops a tired joke. Couldn't they at least date for a small arc and break up because Amy's too short-tempered and emotional? If they dated and then broke up naturally, that would make Sonic wanting to get away from her advances all the more justified, because he'd know from experience already that a relationship with her could fail. At least while she's so childish and needs some growing up to do. And so he'd look smart by avoiding her rather than an ungrateful prick. I'd like to see Amy and the ex-girlfriend who still goes after Sonic role. It'd make a lot more sense, especially since she would have a reason to think she'd have a chance with him since he gave her one already. I mean, they could just have the relationship be just a reference past history thing. They don't even have to show it. 8. No character development allowed unless specifically approved by Sega first. This is overprotective of their characters to say the least. I can understand not wanting their characters to completely morph into different people, but not even a little development, really? What is this, a little kids franchise? Most of the bands are adults. 9. Sega characters cannot be changed in any way unless approved, even though they're giving the characters to other writers in the comics, which implicitly gives them permission to do whatever they want with them. Wouldn't this just cause a lot of wasted time from pointless meetings every time there's a change proposed? Like, every time that Sonic wants to wear a different outfit because Antoine's getting married? 10. Sega characters can't die. Okay, this is fine, but it seems a little superfluous because there was never any threat of that anyways. The comic writers would never have the guts to do that for real. The kill count for even the actual comic was pretty low. Pender tried to kill off Knuckles once, but even then I'm pretty sure he just thought it was temporary. So, I guess he didn't get away with that? 11. Sonic must always win. Yes, this applies to the reboot. Even if Eggman does get the upper hand for a short period, Sonic has to immediately overcome him in a subsequent comic. Sonic must always win? Are you fucking serious? What is this, Dora the Explorer? You need to have the villains regularly get victories in action series or I'll have no reason to be invested. That's not exciting. And that's not keeping me on the edge of my seat. Flynn wrote that Destruction of Knothole storyline for a reason. To show that Sonic and friends can recover from even the most devastating of losses. And it's not like they rebuilt Knothole, so it proves that it did have a lasting impact that lasted the rest of the comic, but they can still recover from it in a different, better way. It's the same reason they tried to write the end of the Freedom Fighters storyline, to show that Sonic and friends can recover from even the worst of losses. Okay, at least this mandate keeps that from happening again. Even in the most lighthearted of the early comic, I always took Robotnik seriously as a strong antagonistic force, and it was balanced out by the lighthearted tone, making the stories really charming. Why can't they do that again? If Sonic always wins, oh god, that literally sounds like he's a Mary Sue. I can't believe they call Sally that when Sonic literally has a mandate that he must always win. Fanfiction is better than that, because I guarantee you he doesn't always win in that. 12. Sonic characters can't change outfits. This is a rule that I associate pretty strongly with the reboot, and this is a pretty brainless rule. And look at the Sonic channel artwork. It doesn't follow that mandate at all. This is one of the reboot rules that seriously angers me. You cannot have a believable universe in a long-running series if the characters never changed clothes. It's bad enough that Archie did that before the reboot, with like Sally always wearing the same vest. When you compare that to like Fleetway, where Amy seems to change outfits all the time. Does this mean that they never dressed up properly for Antoine and Bunny's wedding in the reboot? Really? And what's wrong with characters going to sleep in their pajamas? It makes them more sympathetic looking and relatable. I love seeing the Sonic characters in new clothes and artwork, specifically because I never get to see them like that. Also, the Sonic Rivals series had different costumes for the Sonic characters just fine. Like Silver had a Santa costume. 13. Archie characters as well as Teddy M characters can't appear anywhere else. Granted, this is due to legal issues as they're not 100% owned by Sega, but actually supporting and liking that rule is just fucking brainless. What a waste, especially now that Archie Sonic's dead. Common sense would dictate that this rule should be revoked now to save those characters, since you can't use them in Archie anyways. The only reason this rule exists is Sega Japan wanting to spite Americans, and they've had this kind of behavior since the series started. Sega also forbids any other non-game characters appearing in the games, but at least this is legally obligated due to the very tangled copyright mess of their ownership. 14. Sega characters must be ageless. Okay, so they're Time Lord gods apparently. I hope the mandate means that they'll just never be stated to age up. I did honestly hate that in the actual comic. Tails became too old for the adorable little brother figure he's supposed to be, and Sonic was almost 18. And if they keep aging the characters, eventually they'll have to stop or it'll get ridiculous and fans will point out the inconsistency. And they'll have to change the way they look. So now we're getting into the less important, less reboot-centered mandates. 15. There's a mandate where Sonic must be on the cover of the comic with the exception of the Sonic Universe series. Even if he's not involved in the issue? That's scary Stu-ish. And I remember tons of comic covers where that didn't happen, so maybe that's just a reboot thing. 16. There's a rule that classic Sonic and modern Sonic can't be together. That sounds dumb, especially since it already happened in the games twice. How are they expecting to do Generations and Forces adaptations then? 17. Sonic cannot be shown without shoes. Weird, since we saw him with his socks under the shoes multiple times before the reboot, like when he created a bridge of dirt from his socks to run on before issue 50. I could understand if it was a rule against showing his feet, because that might look disturbing since we're so used to seeing Sonic characters with their feet completely covered. But that's still a stupid rule because it's all about something superficial and aesthetic, not something story related. Who cares if we see his socks? This is another mandate that's really ridiculous and tries to dehumanize Sonic as just a cocky mascot being less relatable in the process. The mandate actually affected the Mario and Sonic at the Olympics team. 18. Classic Sonic isn't allowed to have a modern Sonic art style and vice versa. Apparently it's too conflicting. Art style? Why would they? Wouldn't their very designs always be the same? Why would they even think to do that? That's weird. If they mean classic Sonic with green eyes, didn't they already do that? SA1 on the Dreamcast had Sonic look kind of like that. He was still just as pudgy with short spines. If anything, that would be a better transition as he's naturally aging to modern Sonic. 19. Eggman's not allowed to have his glasses off. They flip-flopped with that rule as issue 200 showed. The fact that Archie can get away with ignoring the rules just makes me all the more frustrated that they can't just ignore them all constantly if Sega's putting rules on them that they don't even care about themselves. And now for the Defunct mandates. 20. Classic characters aren't allowed to be implied to be younger. At least the comic lifted this mandate. 21. Classic characters can't be shown in flashbacks. Because fuck honoring the older games in a way that feels more real and concrete than dumb references apparently. Luckily this mandate has been lifted. Like a post-reboot issue featured a flashback to the proto-Silver Sonic that used Sonic's classic design. The mandate was apparently why we didn't see classic Amy in the Metal Sonic flashback in SA1. Yeah, I'm sure the fact that they'd have to make an extra model had nothing to do with it. 22. Sonic and Eggman must have their American designs everywhere but Japan. Consistency, okay, this is fine. But why could they at least show the other designs with alternate universe versions of themselves? Fortunately, this was an only 90s mandate, but it forced Fleetway to change Robotnik's design really suddenly to the one from Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. So that's all the stupid, dumb Sega mandates, some of which are the reason why the reboot has me so hesitant. Obviously, these do more harm than good. They arbitrarily stifle the creativity of the writers, not allowing them to breathe, by decreasing the amount of stories they're allowed to make. It makes Sonic more flanderized of a character instead of being sympathetic. Honestly, fanfiction is better, because at least they don't have that, even if not all fanfiction is good. If anything, him having sympathetic moments makes the moments where he's cool much cooler, because they're emphasized against them and feel believable. I'll try to write down and remember everything that I like about the reboot when I actually get to it. But with Sonic being made less relatable and the meta logic being everywhere, I have a feeling that this would be few and far in between. If I wanted a Sonic that was unsympathetic and not relatable for the most part, I would read Fleetway because that does it way better. In fact, I'm way more inclined to read Fleetway finally than the reboot. I hope you won't mind and will keep watching when I move on to that comic.